the Flesh Slayer, Pistoleta, and soon to be Galactic Rodents of Mayhem, self published professional, here with William Hastings. What's going on, William? Tell us a little about yourself.
Hey guys, my name is William. I'm an independently published author. My first book, The Crimson Spark, launches for ebook, Amazon exclusive on October 11th. It's a young adult coming of age fantasy story you're all really gonna like.
Awesome. So Crimson Spark, right?
Yeah.
I like the title. It's for me, it's vivid. Okay. I kind of, Crimson Spark, it's talking to me. So real quick, if you had to just give me an elevator pitch, literally within, I don't know, like 30-second elevator pitch, how would you explain Crimson Spark?
A boy mourning his dead twin and a girl living as a boy join a group of homeless wandering swordsmen to stop a revolution carried out by a former child soldier.
Nice. This sounds like it could be a trilogy of books. I don't know.
It's actually it's going to be a standalone, but there are going to be 8 books in the series. Each are going to have their own individual stories with the same characters, but you don't have to read the ones before to read the ones that are coming after.
Awesome. So let's talk about your writing inspiration, because I feel like people who write, who create, like there's something going on where they feel like they got a story to tell and they feel like they want to talk about something. What sparked Crimson Spark? And then on top of that, what other stuff have you written?
Well, what sparked, I wanted to write the genre that inspired me growing up, which was fantasy for young people. But I found that there wasn't a lot of it coming out recently that spoke to me personally.
Okay.
All the stuff that I really resonated with came out in either the late 90s, the early 2000s, or the 60s. And I feel like modern publishing has sort of forgotten how to tell stories for young people without talking down to them.
Interesting. I like this take on mainstream. If you think about it, it's mainstream, right? I mean,
yes, absolutely.
Mainstream is everything. It's the books that we're getting in our schools. It's what we're seeing on TV, and I feel like there's a big gatekeeping web somewhere along the way. Now, you talked about this, and I think it's interesting. Is there an experience, or is there something that led you to believe, okay, like this ain't talking to me? There's something like, and you wanted to do your own thing. How is this coming into play? Like your way, your path. Is it going through mainstream or where you at?
It was going through mainstream.
Okay.
I originally wanted to publish this traditionally, but as I started inquiring in the process of doing that, I began to realize that it wasn't going to fit in mainstream YA, mostly because both my protagonists are the survivors of abuse of some kind. And that is either a completely forbidden subject in modern publishing, or they don't want to skirt around it and make it something political. I wanted to tell an actual story about the psychological effects that has on young people, because I've worked with young people like that. And it became clear that that wasn't something that was going to fly in the traditional circles. So I had to go independent.
Interesting. And I could actually relate in this aspect because I do work in a field where I interact with kids, and they feel comfortable to tell me things. And sometimes they hit you with a doozy, or they hit you with some whammies. And a lot of it stems to a psychological abuse from a traumatic incident when they're children. And this literally has such a damaging effect on their psyche, it really warps their brain in a way where we can see there's a multitude of different paths, that happen from these type of experiences. And they are great for storytelling, because it's a way to build more, what do you say, like exposure to it, or making awareness to it, and through storytelling, which is the real reason, right, behind stories, right? We want to tell a message.
Yes, and this story, The Crimson Spark, is about these two characters piecing their personalities basically back together after having been so scarred by this. And the abuse happens before the story even starts. So you meet these characters, and they've obviously got something wrong with them, and you find out over the course of the story how they're sort of pulling themselves back together, and a lot of that has to do with their relationship with each other and with the world.
Nice. So this is definitely going to be complex, and it's definitely hitting a chord that needs to be hit more often. And what the problem I see here, and there's nothing to do with your work or your vision, it's that what you said earlier, that mainstream publishing doesn't want to talk about this, and they want to skirt around. And the problem is this is an issue that's literally plaguing our youth. And when we don't talk about it, or when we don't create uplifting stories using characters that have been through similar experiences where a new generation of readers can connect to, we're literally creating just more stuff that's not really hitting the point or not touching on important issues. And it's in this one with the child abuse and the endangerment or whatnot.
Yeah, a lot of current year YA falls completely flat. It feels toothless, it feels condescending, and I wanted to tell a story that would be that wouldn't treat the reader as if they didn't know the bad things that were happening in the world.
Right. That's interesting, man. I think that
That's actually what
yeah.
gravitated me to you, actually. That was how what really, the first project of and that was the reason I backed Pistolera was because it was such a daring, sort of untraditional story, I thought.
I think I'm losing you. Is that me?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Did you get my bit about Pistolera?
I got you when you said you backed it because it was like kind of untraditional, and then
Yeah.
we could just cut out a bit. Can you
Oh, sorry.
continue?
Yes,
Yeah,
no,
yeah. No, it's not you.
I backed it because it was untraditional, and I
Yeah.
really enjoyed your take on that. I was wondering if you could maybe tell me a little bit about that. Like, where did Pistolera come from?
Awesome. Well, real quick, how did you get how did you come across it? Was it through Twitter? Was it through Facebook? Was it
It was
generally
through
just
Twitter, yeah.
surfing through Kickstarter? Oh,
No,
through
it was
Twitter.
Twitter, yeah. I follow I
Awesome.
follow a ton of indie comics people on Twitter, so I bump into
Amazing.
almost all the Indiegogo projects that are going on, and I try to share
Dude,
as many as I can.
I appreciate you. First of all, I just want to say I appreciate you because
Oh, thank you.
you're supporting these stories, and that's what it all starts with, just the support. For me, Pistolera, I wanted to do like I grew up on westerns. I grew up on a lot of stuff, right? We all have, right? There's always something like fantasy that I'm a nerd when it comes to fantasy and all the popular genres. I got something for it, right? But with westerns, I feel like it's hard to do something fresh in the western genre. And I was thinking, what could be a story that could be interesting, that could be, kind of still fun, but still also gritty and dark, because it has to be my take on it. And when I was doing research on the West, I came across the Texas Mexican War, and how Texas got independence from Mexico, and they were their own republic and stuff. And I thought that was an interesting time because they was driving some Mexicans off the land, and I'm like, okay, this might seem like, there's some historical context here. I could just kind of throw this. And would they really need that land? Maybe they wouldn't. I mean, there's a lot you could say, but in this story, I felt it was a building block. And then I'm like, okay, well, what about main character? We've seen a ton of we've seen your Clint Eastwood types. He's iconic for a reason, right? Then I'm like, okay, you could have the female gunslinger, but she needs to have a purpose. I'm like, what if we had? And then again, this is also tapping into like your experience with children that go through harrowing stuff as a child. And I felt like her age, being a teen and being like a pregnant teen, because that's all other story. But I felt like that's where it was just talking to me, and then that's where I came up with the building blocks to Pistolera.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it turned out really well. I enjoyed Pistolera a lot. I didn't get a chance to read Lair, but I'm very much Galactic Rodents of Mayhem.
Yeah. No work. Hey, Galactic Rodents of Mayhem is what I kind of want to do, something fun. Because again, we know the political landscape. We already know how that is, and especially when comics. We'll talk about that. How we'll see from your perspective, your take on this. But I feel like there's a heavy political agenda that's really infiltrating the mainstream comics world, and I kind of felt like I still want to make things fun with Galactic Rodents and Mayhem, but at the same time, and this is coincidentally a factual, in that there is some trauma with childhood experiences, and I have a little bit of that in Galactic Rodents and Mayhem, and how I have the turmoil with that, and how the coping with that happens between some of the characters. So it's just interesting how I'm using different genres to still touch on things that aren't really touched on, but still make things fun too, and keeping it in line with the spirit of comics.
I see. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I was, frankly, I was really impressed at the jump in terms of art quality between Pistolera and Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. Grom. I think Grom looks fantastic. It's a gorgeous book, and I think everybody should definitely go check it out.
Yeah, I hope we can fund. If not, I still have a plan B. We're definitely going to get this thing funded. But the cool thing about Grom and the jump in art, that's where I feel like every artist has like something to bring. Lair artist is Sebastian. He's also doing Galactic Rodents of Mayhem. I'm like, listen, we did Dark already with like our Lair supernatural thing. I'm like, I want to tap into fun. What I remember as fun growing up, and that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So. And then Star Wars is kind of going through their thing where there's a lot of disappointment. And I'm like, you know what? I kind of wanted to tap into where we can make this anthropomorphic, deep space, sci-fi, odyssey adventure, make it fun, and still touch on some, important themes, some deep, weighty themes. And that's where Galactic Rodents of Mayhem came about. And just fortunate enough to see the art quality there. With Pistolera, I had... the artist he was very friendly in terms of his rate, and I had like 2 projects at the same time, so I'm still funding stuff out of pockets, crowdfunding. It's a mix of both, and when you have a good rate, and then I felt like this art style kind of cartoonish with Pistoleta, I wanted to put that in there to add some kind of levity, I feel, visually, because we are dealing with deep, there's a lot of deep subject matter here, mature stuff as well, and stuff that you're saying skirted around in mainstream, which is why I guess like this probably wouldn't get picked up by a publisher. But the fact that we're able to crowdfund it and get it out is another good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought the art in Pistolera worked. It obviously, it has its problems. Everything has its problems. I think the whole gunslinging, bullets all over the place, mixed with that sort of black and white European style. The first book comics crowdfunding thing that I backed was Iron Sights.
Okay.
And that had a lot of that. I think that was drawn by Ken Ellis, and I thought the art in that book was awesome.
Yeah, I like Ken Ellis's art, and I have touched base with him. I do want to do a project with him, and I think his schedule is looking like next year, late next year, which I'll take it. And we'll have something together, which will be cool. But I love his style. I still haven't read Iron Sights. Canales told me they're going to bring, I think, a sequel where I can get the first volume. So I definitely want to.
Yeah,
definitely
going to back the pack. Month, actually,
I
think the campaign launches next month for Iron Sights.
Awesome. So yeah, so definitely gonna. That's without question. I'm definitely gonna be backing that one because again, I like the aesthetic, I like the style, and with the, it's kind of like actiony with the cartel. It's gritty. I'm a sucker for those stories. So.
Yeah, that stuff's awesome.
Yeah, so for me it works. What other stories have you written so far that's complete?
Well, The Crimson Spark is my first novel.
Nice. Okay, awesome.
I started writing it in 2009.
Okay.
And when I was in high school. So a lot of stuff has happened since then.
Nice. Oh yeah.
It's gone through 3 rewrites and about 8 drafts, and it just recently I finished up with my editor. Now I'm going through the copy.
Yeah.
Gonna have the print file ready, and it's almost done. It's coming to Kindle on October 11th. And it's going to be on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, you'll be able to get it for free.
Beautiful. So people get more eyes on it.
Yeah, going to come out on paperback around the same time. And if you get the paperback, you get the ebook for free.
Awesome. So reading on the go, and people, if anyone's in like a metropolitan area, like I used to live in New York, on a subway train, a Kindle is your best friend.
Absolutely.
You
And
could do some heavy reading there.
we're working on an audiobook version too.
Nice.
Trying to get the right narrator is tricky, but I think we're gonna
Mhm.
find somebody really special.
Yeah, man, take your time with that, because you have to find the right. Yeah, you definitely need to find the right voice. So that will actually be kind of fun, I think.
So you wanted to talk a little bit about my article about indie comics, my blog post.
Yeah, I kind of want to branch into how this came about.
This meeting between the two of us, or this sort of interest in indie comics that I've got.
Yeah, this interest in indie comics, because that's how we met, through the love of
Yeah.
indie comics, right?
Well, it started with YouTube mostly. I was watching a lot of these newer comics YouTubers,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a resurgence of interest in comic books. I've always liked comic books, but I go on
Yeah.
and off of buying them, and I got back into them, and there's just this stuff on display. I just could not stand it. So I wound up. It was terrible. It was awful. I was really
I hear you, dude.
I was just, and so I took all the money that I was going to spend on that, and I decided to use it on these indie books, and I do
Nice.
not regret a single bit of that. I think that some of these
Awesome.
big stack of them. Next, we've got Graveyard Shift, Movie Men, Cyberfrog,
Nice.
Escalera, Trump Space Force, My Hero Macademia, Bigfoot Bill.
Nice.
Like, all these books have been so interesting. They're so different. It's just a very interesting, creative time in comics, and I wanted to bring some of that into indie. Particularly, I think that there's a lot we can learn.
I think what helps the comics is that the crowdfunding platform is so robust, at least, and it's growing. But even in that sense, there's still a lot of eyes not privy to, this movement. You're ahead of the curve in that sense, because you're already like, you know what, I ain't getting the fix here. I'm going to the weekly shop. I'm just like, I'm reading this stuff and it's just not hitting home. And you're finding some quality content through crowdfunding, which I think is awesome. And I don't know if it'll be a matter of time where, I guess, it'll just be more widespread. Like, I don't know. We're like entering like an interesting era for comics. So what is your thought on this kind of like mentality, I guess, like this SJW type mentality where, identity, and I'm all for that, but I'm not for the heavy-handedness. And was there any comic that you could think of that literally just slapped the taste out of your mouth, where you're like, okay, I'm just done. I'm shifting all my money now into the indies?
Yeah. My favorite book since I was a kid, Superman. Brian Michael Bendis recently came in to write Superman.
Interesting.
And it was the most unbearable.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Superman had recently, started having a family, and had become this very personal sort of story. And Bendis comes in and he just takes that all apart, and he makes this sort of simpering thing where Jor-El comes in and he takes the wife and he takes the son. And it's awful. It was awful. I could not believe that DC signed off on it, and I could not stay with them after that.
That's crazy. Props to Bendis, though, right? I mean, I would love to be that guy that just writes like you're writing like everything.
Yeah, but unfortunately, one of the problems that I think comic writers run into that publication, like traditional authors, don't, is sometimes you can be on too many books. I remember in 2000, when did New 52 happen? Like 2012? Jeff Johns was like on 13 different books, and he was very clearly burned out on a couple of them.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I mean, hey, first of all, let me say, if you can get a gig doing 13 books, that's great for you. I'm definitely going to applaud that. I align with you, and where I feel like you need any writer, you need a breather. Your eyes are gonna get all watery. You gotta like take a moment to look away from the white noise on the TV screen, gather your thoughts, and do something fresh, or do something. If you're jumping around to different books, like you say, things can get stagnant. You can see the writing kind of wither, I bet, as far as quality. And my thing, is where I'm a bit naive and how I thought you know how you thought you can, I guess, go through the mainstream way to get into writing prose. I thought, hey, I got a cool story on a book. I'll pitch that and it'll get picked up by like Image or something. And boy, was I wrong.
Yeah. Problems is the industry is so unhealthy, salaries are so low that a lot of the writers need to take all these, like, 15 plus jobs a month just to, keep the lights on. And it's the quality of all the books is suffering because of it. Artists too.
Exactly. And I feel like, where's the new blood, right? Like, hey,
Yeah.
if you're Bendis and you could be doing Superman, bouncing here to ping pong ball to do Spider-Man and do Batman or do whatever, it's almost to the point like, where is there an honest, organic, natural, wholehearted, genuine attempt to really foster some great indie talent, cultivate it, and let it bloom? Like, no, because again, everything is heavy-handed in some sense. And I feel like, you'll have an editor who's gonna restrain you, and not let you get what I'm saying? I get you're writing maybe Batman. Like, I could never write Batman because they wouldn't let me write my version of Batman. The Batman I would love to write would be him struggling with the idea of faith. Because I know Batman's detective, he's a science guy, and I'm all for that. But I would create a character that would operate out of those conventions, and he can't prove it or he can't figure it out. And it might have ties into something maybe demonic or maybe ties into something metaphysical. But like for him, if it can't be explained by science, it would be like a thing. And I just thought that would be a cool side of Batman that I haven't seen, but we could still make it cool and fun and not preachy in any kind of way. You feel me?
It would be interesting. I'd like that a lot.
But we would never see it unless maybe some revolution happens where, I don't know. Again, it's just the way the landscape is looking. It's not practically realistic. I don't think it's going to happen.
If a character isn't already established to have that as part of their personality, introducing it can be really, really hard. Like, unless it's like, Daredevil's been Catholic since his entire basically existence, and telling stories about him and faith, that's less controversial. But Batman, people are always kind of ambiguous about Superman and Batman, whether or not they think certain things that they don't want to take any stand because they don't want to alienate any readers, and I think that hurts the characterization.
And also, I feel like it has to be done in a way where it can't come across as heavy-handed,
right?
And it had, like, if you've seen, I'm sure they had the quote "Oh my God" in Batman books. Like, I'm sure it's happened. Like, something bad happened. Oh my God! Oh my God! So, I mean, it's just a concept that is just a word that's always said when something happens, more or less. So it's like having him just entertain that, or just it's something that's never been seen. And I understand that you don't want to alienate anyone, and I'm all for that. But at the same time, I would just like to flirt with leaving the question out there, and I would have the story in a way where I'm not jamming this down your throat. But if Batman can think about it, I just want you to think about it, and that's all I do. And again, this is just dreaming here, right? Yeah, I love these hypotheticals.
The editors are the most political people at these comic companies right now. Even more than the writers. They're hired right out of school, right out of just for either they've been journalists or and they usually have a very specific goal in what they want the brand to do, and that's, in my opinion, what really has been killing the industry.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a lot with this, misogynistic, this feminist heavy agenda, and it's like, I'm all for female, equality and empowerment, but I mean, do you got to like tear down a man to do it? I mean, there's ways where it's too heavy-handed, and it's just when you sacrifice great storytelling, to push this agenda is where I feel like you've lost your soul. Like you sold out as like a writer or something. That's just me personally.
It's the difference between escapism and propaganda.
Yeah, true that.
In my blog post about indie comics, I talk about the hunger for escapism, and to me, escapism is going into a story to feel, feel excited, you escape from the real world and feel these characters as if they're real. But propaganda is when the feelings of the real world, the superstitions, the paranoia that follows you into the pages of a book, and I hate that. That's a complete deal.
Yeah, it ruins it. Now you have Crimson Spark already done.
Yes.
What is your next book?
My next book is this is the first time I've talked about it.
Okay. Are you allowed to?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
My next book is going 2 projects in the works. The first one is called The Opal Embers, and it's the sequel to The Crimson Spark.
Nice.
The continuation of that story with those characters, and it's going to be much more ambitious. It's going to have much more content. It's going to be longer, bigger, more protagonists, more action. I'm really excited about that. And the other project I'm working on is right now it's just called VCW. And it is a story about an exorcist from the Vatican sent to infiltrate a professional wrestling company because of demonic activity.
Dude, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop this.
I got the cover and everything. It looks incredible. I can't wait.
Dude,
I want to wait until after but like people are gonna go crazy for this one, I think.
Dude, you know what you're doing right now, right? I don't think you realize what you're doing. You're like making me want to have the graphic novel rights to at least explore this through crowdfunding or a team up or something. Not the rights, but just the permission to like do something like this. Because interestingly enough, and I'm not lying here, I had a pitch that I sent to Image Comics. It was called Heel. And if you're writing this, you're definitely a big wrestling fan, right?
Yes.
So we all know we have the face, right? And we all know we have the heel, right?
Yeah.
So in wrestling, I don't know about you, but I've always enjoyed ECW. I don't know if you're ever familiar with ECW.
Oh, yeah, I'm familiar with ECW.
Right. So I mean, what I hate is where there's like a prominent ECW guy and like he'll come over, he'll sign the contract for WWE and he's like trash. You know, it's like he's not what he was, you know. I mean, eventually maybe he might graduate to that. But for me, so that was a concept. You have this hot shot who comes to this other wrestling organization and he pretty much is getting crapped on by like the Vince McMahon type. And he's fighting back. He like breaks his, what is it, kayfabe, what they call it?
Kayfabe, yeah.
Kayfabe, right? Where they go off script and he's supposed to lose and he goes off script and it's like a real brawl in the ring. And the ref makes an example. Not the ref. The antagonist makes an example out of him. And long story short, his contract is cut. He's on the end of a bender, a drug bender, overdose, that type of thing. And he ends up in limbo.
Huh.
Yeah, and he makes a deal with Legion, who's overseeing Limbo, and he signs it, and it's signed literally on his tongue, and like with the L on his tongue, it's literally branded with the L on his tongue. But he doesn't know he sacrificed his son instead of his own soul. Like he didn't know. He's going he's going with it. But he comes back, and that's the thing. The trade-off is like, give me your soul, you get your revenge or whatnot. So he comes back as a new persona in the same wrestling organization, and his name is Lucid, and that's where the L and everything connects. But then at the end, he like reveals his true self. It's like this revival. It's like this like a faith kind of thing where it was a lot, bro. You opened a big door with this exorcist going into a freaking dude. This sounds amazing.
Well, I appreciate it.
Holy cow!
I think that it's really going to be unique. There aren't a lot of fiction books about wrestling, and there are even fewer fiction books about wrestling that are written 100% in kayfabe.
Yeah.
So this book would be written as if there are actual wizards and demons and all sorts of things taking place at these wrestling companies, and people just don't pay attention because wrestling's not real.
So lovely.
The Vatican is like, okay, there's like weird demon shit going on, so we're gonna send you in. You're a decent fighter. You're in the military. Go in there and just see what's going on.
This is awesome, dude. This is awesome. Just consider me if anything happens. I would love to do a project.
Just be a thing with a lot of different creators involved. Actually, I'm talking to this one guy about doing a backup story for it already. So it's looking to be like something that will invite itself to be shared among a lot of different people.
Yeah, man. So the title is called VCW.
ECW, yes.
And what's
the Championship Wrestling?
Oh my God, I can't wait for this one to be done, man. Take your time with it. Make sure it comes out really well. There isn't many wrestling. I can't even think of any, to be honest. So if you could be the first or the few that could spearhead a nice little refreshing breath of wrestling and pose, I'm all for it. It just sounds incredible, and the cover, it sounds, from what you said, really good. So
yeah, I just got the cover back, and it incredible. I showed it to a couple of
Could
people.
could you
I would
could you
absolutely send it to you after this.
could you share it? Like,
Yeah.
as just explain it to me. I'll look at it. I'll definitely share it. I won't.
Yeah,
I don't. I'll
it
keep it
has,
secret. But could you explain it or describe it?
yeah, it has the protagonist coming off of the top rope onto a person mid to a demon, while the ropes are all on fire. It looks so cool.
Jesus, that is amazing,
Yeah, it's
dude.
by Ivan Tao. Ivan Tao is an incredible artist. He did the cover for Maxwell Cain Burrito Avenger, which is where I first
Nice.
noticed him.
Nice. That title sounds awesome in itself.
Yeah, that's a great book. Definitely, everyone check out that. It's by Adam Lane Smith. He's fantastic, incredibly talented, huge inspiration for me.
Awesome, awesome. So I love what I'm hearing here. There's definitely a lot of energy. You definitely sound like a promising talent as far as writing is concerned. You have a taste for comics, and you're always going to have a plethora of ideas at your disposal. And just what I'm hearing with Crimson Spark and with VCW, your future looks really bright, my dude.
Oh, thank you. I like to think so too.
Yeah, man. Definitely keep doing what you're doing, guys. Whoever's checking this, off not obviously we're live, but whoever checks this video out, take a look at William Hastings. I'm gonna put his link on the channel to that blog article that you read. He definitely knows his way around comic books. He understands of the industry and how the gatekeeping is and how they don't want to touch certain topics, and he wants to just crash that gate down through his storytelling. So definitely, guys, if you read prose, he's worth checking out. If you don't read prose, maybe now is a good time to start, because as much as comics are visual, and like they say, picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And we all know, like, there's so many panels in comics that tell a story. I feel that a great writer could have such an effect on the mind that literally turns your brain into like a film projector at like of the highest quality, of HD quality even. Because
Yeah,
I've read,
I love when books do that. That's always been what attracted me to reading. Is
yeah,
your mind doesn't have a set budget. Movies can only spend so much, but you can imagine anything.
exactly. And I think what's also important is to have that go-to writer. And I know everyone has a different writer. There's some that inspire me. I know I like Stephen King, Dean Koontz. But then there's some, like, even the Stephen Kings that I just, like, I can't get into. And I like, my rule is, if you try and the first 2 or 3 pages are not sucking you in, just drop it and go. As much as I just feel like it has to be something there. Who's one of your favorite writers that kind of kept you to keep that what do you call it, that film projector, like, to see it vividly through the mind?
The writer is Lloyd Alexander.
Lloyd Alexander. Okay, what's one of his top works for you?
He wrote the Chronicles of Prydain, which famously the second one was made into a movie by Disney called The Black Cauldron. But
Nice.
obviously it was just very Disneyfied. But the original series made such a, and it's the same genre I write. So that's what I
Awesome.
aspire to be basically every day.
Chronicles of Pride.
Prydain.
Prydain. I'm gonna Google this because you said it's the Black Cauldron, and I always like that Disney. Because it had the fantasy. I'm all with fantasy. What was the other one? Sword in the Stone was another one. Like, I'm always drawn to that. So okay, Lloyd Alexander, definitely a great inspiration. I'm definitely gonna check that one out, because you said that's where you got that's where you're able to see things vividly. So that's awesome. So guys, definitely check out Mr. William Hastings. I'll have his link on the channel. Follow him on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
Mr. Will Hastings.
So that's at Mr. Will Hastings.
Yeah.
You can follow him. He'll follow you back on Twitter. Especially he follows comics. That's how we got into meeting each other, and it's been a great meeting here, meeting of the minds, talking about the industry. I definitely would love to have you back on.
I'd be happy to be back on. I had a great time.
especially, you know, now that I know you're into wrestling, maybe we could do like one just I'm not plugged into wrestling right now to know what's going on,
Uh,
but to talk about the glory days,
yeah,
man.
I could go on for hours.
You know what's going on right now? You're
Yeah.
that plugged in?
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
so this is what we'll do. We'll pick a day. Yeah, sometime next week or thereafter, wherever you're good, wherever works for you. And it'll just literally be like a wrestling update stream. Like for
Awesome.
people who like haven't been in wrestling, and since you're up to date in that sense, this could be like where we geek out on wrestling for a little bit.
That sounds
Because I
fantastic.
always love wrestling, man. And I think as far as I'm concerned, wrestling is storytelling to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Yeah,
know?
no question about that.
Yeah. There's no right. It's just it is. So definitely, guys. William Hastings is a great dude. We're definitely gonna have him on again in the future. We've got a wrestling show hopefully planned, which will be interesting. And definitely check out his work, Crimson Spark, and be on the lookout for VCW. It is definitely gonna rock your brains. Follow him on Twitter, and I appreciate you guys. William, is there any last words before we take it away in this show?
Thank you all for watching. It's been really for this is my first time ever being on a live stream, so I was a little bit nervous, but I had a great time.
So, guys, this was his first time on a live stream. He's going to be back, and he's going to be someone special. I believe that for his writing career. So we got a first look at William here. Check him out. Guys, don't forget, also check out Galactic Road to Mayhem. I write comics. I'm trying to do what William's doing, but on a comic landscape. So we appreciate you guys for checking us out. Take care. Until the next one. Be good, guys. Later. And ending the broadcast.